The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Happy Saturday to all of you who are out there watching this live. Appreciate you for just lending me your ear for a few minutes. You know how that goes. I told you I had a video for you yesterday. Yesterday turned into today. And so my apologies there, but better late than never. So Commanders signed a couple more players. One you're familiar with, one you're not. So we'll talk about them very quickly. And talk about a couple of items that I wanted to knock down, and then we'll get out of here. I don't want to hold you hostage on a Saturday night. So Commanders signed Nate Herbig, offensive lineman. He's a guard, right? I think that he's going to have a legitimate shot to be your week one starter should Sam Cosmi not be available to start the season. I'm still of the mindset that Sam Cosmi will be ready to rock and roll come week one, right? That's the optimism talking. The reality is probably more so that he will be out the first 3 to 4 weeks, and then he'll join the team. Because if he can't practice in the offseason, if he can't practice in the preseason, he doesn't have to play in any games. But if he can't actually get out there on the practice field and ramp up, right? Because they're gonna have that ramp up period where he's off on the side field, and then he'll start to get reps. And if that can't take place prior to the start of the season, he's not just gonna jump in there, right? So I just keep saying to myself, he's got 8 months. 8 months to get back, because that injury took place in January. And I think he can do it. You know, I think he can do it. But if he can't, and there's no rush, right? Here's an option here in Nate Herbig. The more and more we see what the Washington Commanders are doing with some of the depth pieces on the offensive line, it starts to, and the restructuring of Andrew Wiley deal feels more like a guy that's going to have to reach a certain amount of snaps percentage-wise to hit some of his incentive goals to be able to make all of that money that he did not receive in that restructure, where they gave him some upfront money and gave him an opportunity to reach the rest, obtain the rest of that money via certain landmarks in his contract. With the restructure, I'm guessing they're snaps. And if it's a snap percentage, that probably gears towards them transitioning Wiley. It could go both ways, because if I'm Andrew Wiley, while I want the guarantee of some upfront money, I don't think they were going to cut him. I mean, that's my guess. I don't think they were going to cut him. And so why not just roll the dice if you're Andrew Wiley and say, I'm going to make it to the season healthy, and then my 6 point whatever million dollars is fully guaranteed to me, salary wise, instead of taking the restructure. Let's say the restructure gave him $4 million of upfront money, and then the other two, let's say 2.5 million is incentive based, right? So let's say his base salary this year is 2 million. His upfront guarantees, or let's just say that 4.5 of his salary is now guaranteed, instead of the 6.5 that he was supposed to get. and he can only obtain the other $2 million by hitting certain landmarks. I would have just rolled the dice and said, hey, I'll make it to week 1 healthy. Then my contract becomes fully guaranteed and I'm going to get paid anyway. If I'm Andrew Wiley, there's no way I'm signing that restructured deal, or I'm not restructuring my contract if I'm not going to have a chance to get to that $2 million. Obviously, things happen in the NFL, but if you're moving me from tackle to guard and I'm only going to play until Cosme comes back, and then there's no guarantee that I'm going to play the rest of the season, it's going to be highly unlikely that I earn that money unless, again, some things transpire in front of him. It kind of feels like he's going to stay at tackle. And Coleman's going to kick inside. We have no idea what's going to happen there, right? Anyway, if Coleman is to go to tackle and Wiley's going to serve as your swing tackle, Herbig is in the mix to be your starting guard. He gives you depth at that position. I honestly, and again, everything that they've done this year, I tend to look at it from the standpoint of, is it an upgrade over a player that was here last year? In that spot, for me, the answer is yes. Nate Herbig is better than Chris Paul. To me, right, as a guard. So we're going to see how they decide to shuffle the deck, who makes it, who doesn't. Paul feels like a guy that can get cut this year. Chris Paul feels like a guy that is in danger of not making the roster. That's not one of their guys. Last year, it was one of those situations where if it ain't broke, we don't need to necessarily fix it. He's here already. We like him. Let's just leave him where he is. Now, I think they realize, because, again, in the biggest game of the season, when they had to start shuffling the deck, they didn't necessarily love all of the options that they had at their disposal. So I don't think Chris Paul is a guy that necessarily has a roster spot with his name on it right now with this addition of Nate Herbig. But, we'll see. Herbig's no world beater himself. He's coming off of a torn rotator cuff that cost him pretty much all of last year. So there's questions about him from a health standpoint. Again, he's not a great athlete, big physical man that can move people in the run game, however, but he does have limitations. So we will see how this works out. He may not even make this team, right? Like, again, we just assume that most of these guys who get signed in these one-year deals, oh, what are they doing, this, that, and the third? Some of these guys aren't going to make the team. The example I always use was that of the linebacker we signed, Pittman, last year from the Lions, and I think it was Anthony Pittman was his name. And then James Pierre we signed last year as a free agent corner to a one-year deal, and neither one of them made this team last year. So, just because you sign a guy in the offseason to a one-year deal doesn't mean they're going to be here in September when the rosters are finalized. So, and then this one was a bit of a shocker to me. I didn't expect this, nor did I need this file, right? Which we've already been in that cabinet a couple of times this offseason, whether it's KJ Osborne or particularly Michael Dieter. I didn't expect that, nor did I need this file. Here's another one in Cleveland Farrell back at defensive end. Again, Cleveland was always banged up last year. Cleveland offers you no pass rush ability, can help you stop the run, but isn't even dominant in that fashion either, or facet either. And so I, again, looked at him as a guy that's a culture setter, a guy that helps you set the tone for your building. He did that last year. His job, as far as I was concerned, was done. I already talked about Dietrich Wise upgrading us over Cleveland Farrell. And then they said, no. We're going to bring Clee in here too, to mix it up as well. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't need that, but thanks, I guess. All right. So what we've effectively done, and I think there has been a massive overcorrection by this front office. The one criticism I probably have of them this offseason is that they went too over the top in trying to stop the run. I get it. We get it. We weren't great at stopping the run last year. Okay. You got us. We get it. We didn't stop the run well. Saquon Barkley killed us on sight last year, and we had issues with big plays in the run game. I get it. Okay. Yeah. But this is a bit of overkill, right? It's an overcorrection to an issue that we had last year. When you signed Javon Kinlaw, when you signed Eddie Goldman, when you signed Dietrich Wise, we were like, okay, we get it. We get it. You want to stop the run? Okay, we got it. I like it. Great moves. Okay, you can stop now. All right. And then they kept going, right? And they kept bringing in guys that offer you no pass rush value, but can stop the run. And you're like, okay, again, we got it. You want to stop the run. Excellent. But who's going to get the quarterback on 3rd and 8? Because right now, we got nobody to do that. So that's the thing right now that I'm like, I feel like they overcorrected the issue that they had last year. And somebody in the comment section in this video said, well, if you stop the run, it gives you more opportunities to get sacks. Wrong. Okay. that's not a true statement. That's a false statement. If you are dominant at stopping the run, all that does is entice teams to neglect the run and instead elect to pass, which right now we can't get to the quarterback. That would be a bad formula and recipe for us. The only way it benefits us is if the team we're playing against isn't a good passing offense, but rather a really dominant rush offense, then that could be something that inhibits them from being successful, and it may play right into our hands. But in today's NFL, it's the other way around. Most teams thrive off of the ability to throw the football, and then they can run it, if they're having success through the air. In this league, you don't stop the run on 1st and 2nd downs to get you to 3rd down. And then if you can't get pressure, you're going to get off the field. Generally speaking, like, understand what the game plan is. If we know you can't stop the pass, like, there are teams where their run defense doesn't look bad because on paper it says that they're giving up 103 yards a game. But if you are a fan of that team and you watch their rush defense, you're like, our rush defense is ass. That was us last year, right? Where you look at the numbers and sometimes the numbers are deceiving, because what teams effectively said was, if we're down, well, a lot of it was predicated on we were up in games and we were up big a lot of the time. And so teams had to neglect the run, i.e. the Titans, for instance. They were having success early in that game running the football. They had to get away from the run. They were down 21-0 in the first quarter, 28-0 early stages of the second. They had to get away from the run. Arizona was killing us on the ground. Hell, your boy had 100 yards rushing in that game. They were murdering us on the ground, right? James Conner had 100 yards rushing in that game. They had to stop running because we were killing them in the second half. So that bailed us out of a lot of games. And in this league, a lot of times, like when you play Tampa, Tampa's one of the best run defenses every single year because of Vita Vea and his presence inside. It's almost impossible to run on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Every year, they're a top 2-3 unit against the run. Every year. So you know what teams do when they go into the game against Tampa? Forget about the run this week. Let's just throw it, right? That's what we did. When we played Tampa Bay in the playoff game, we pretty much said, to hell with the run game. We're going to spread them out. Jaden's going to go no huddle, and we're going to throw the football against them because we know we're not going to be able to run the ball. It worked. That's what teams do normally when they play teams with dominant run defenses. To hell with the run. Let's throw the football. And if you can't get to the quarterback, it makes it even more advantageous for a team that's playing against you to just abandon the run and go straight after the pass. So if we don't clean that up, and here's the thing. I don't think a Trey Hendrickson deal, so before I even get to that, I've seen people say, oh, yeah, we'll handle it in the draft. And that may be the case. But are you relying on a rookie to come in here and be your source of pass rush? Again, are we trying to win a Super Bowl or not? That's the question. If you're trying to go for it, then you need something. That's why Deebo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil, they work in the situation that we're in. That's why you feel good about them. Why? Because you don't have to project what you're getting from those guys. You already know. Their track record and their past history speaks for itself. It is an indicator of future results. So you can feel confident that putting those guys on the field in those positions, they're going to be successful. You cannot do that, however, with a rookie player, which is why it is hard for teams to just solely rely on rookies if you're trying to win now. You want teams with veteran players. And again, you want a healthy mix. I feel like we kind of took this roster and we aged it. But again, these aren't long-term deals. We're not locked in. Next year, the roster could be a lot younger next year. Why? Because all of the guys that we have here that are still here, that are young guys that are developing, continue to take a step forward. You're going to add in a new batch of rookies and undrafted guys that potentially could come in here and make this roster. So you add them to the mix. And then you're going to get rid of a lot of these veterans that were 30, 31 years old that you just signed that will be moving on. And you could be bringing in some younger guys next year. Who knows? We'll see. But the ultimate goal is to win. And they've set themselves up to do that with the players that they've acquired. But they have a massive void on this team at edge rusher right now. And let's just close the book on Dante Fowler Jr. I told you guys that he was gone when we signed Jacob Martin. Literally, Jacob Martin is Dante Fowler Jr. without the production. Okay. Same type of athleticism and ability, but doesn't have nearly the production in this league. Doesn't have a season where he amassed more than 4 sacks. So the athleticism is there, but the production is not. Maybe, just maybe, we can get out of Jacob Martin what we got out of Dante Fowler Jr. last year. Highly unlikely, okay? Because again, past the past production is an indicator usually of future results. His past production says that you're not getting any more than 4 sacks out of this man, okay? So don't look for it. Be great if he surprised the hell out of us. I mean, none of us expected Dante Fowler Jr. to do what he did last year. None of us did. I was thinking more along the lines of 6, 6.5, and he went and got us 10.5. So again, who knows? But right now, doesn't feel like that's going to be the case. But with Dante Fowler Jr. in particular, obviously he went back to Dallas on a 1-year, $8 million deal. And I told you guys very specifically, because I knew this was about to happen. Once we signed Jacob Martin, I knew he was gone and he was going to end up signing, because I think he was holding out hope that something would get done here, right? That we would change our tune, we would come around. And so until we actually signed somebody in that role, he wasn't going to sign, because I think he ultimately wanted to come back here. This was his first choice. Once they signed Jacob Martin, he and his team probably got together and said, all right, we got to move on, because they clearly moved on from me, right? They're not budging, and I got to go get my money elsewhere. And I said, don't look at the money that he ends up getting and saying, oh, we could have done that, because I said that's not necessarily how much he was trying to squeeze us for, right? It's different when you've played for an organization and you've produced for them and you feel like you're worth a lot more to them, right? So look at it like a used car. If it's your used car and it holds value to you, you want a certain amount for that used vehicle. For someone else, they look at the vehicle, they look at the make, the model, the year, and they say, look, I'll give you $2,000 for it. And you're like, no, bro. Based off of the Kelly Blue Book, this is a car that's worth $2,000. Well, I'm telling you, I've kept it in tremendous condition. You can check the Carfax. You know, this thing, I just replaced this. I want $3,500 for it. For me, you know, it's worth a little bit more. For you, you're like, bro, I'll just give you $2,000 for it. If you don't want to give me, if you don't want to take the $2,000, then it's whatever, right? For Dante, in his mind, he's like, I just produced for you. I played under a contract that was $3.5 million last year. I just got you 10.5 sacks. I led your team in sacks, and it wasn't even close. I need to be compensated. I need $10 million. And they said no. And again, the number could have been 8. That number he signed for Dallas could have been the number he wanted here. And they just said no. And if that's the case, and we'll never know. If that's the case, I don't like it. You're being cheap, you're being frugal for no reason. $8 million isn't going to kill you. You could have given Dante Fowler Jr. $8 million to have a legitimate guy that can get to the quarterback on this football team. So the number had to be more than that. It had to be, I'm guessing 10. And you see what they want to invest in the position, right? Because last year they paid him 3.5. They had no issues doing that because he was coming off a year where he had like 4 sacks. So they had no issues. He had no issues taking $4 million, $3.5 million. This year, he gets 10.5 sacks. He wants a pay raise. They say no. And then they go sign Jacob Martin for like $3 million. So you see what they think about that position. If you're a situational pass rusher, this is all we're willing to divulge to that position. That's bullshit to me. All right. And I knew that it wasn't going to be a ton. He wasn't going to go out here and get 12, 13 million. I was like, we're probably talking about 10, maybe $11 million. Just do it already. Come on. Right? Here we are sitting here. Like, we would feel so much better if Dante Fowler Jr. were here instead of Jacob Martin. We feel so much better because we know we got a guy that can get to the quarterback. We have nobody right now that can get to the quarterback. Not a single soul. If you're depending on Frankie Louvu to get to the quarterback, again, I love me some Frankie, and he's very capable, but he's an off-the-ball linebacker with the ability to rush. He's not a pure pass rusher. There's a difference. And so right now, we've set ourselves up to be a damn good run defense, but dead last in sacks on the season. Again, they're going to have to scheme it up if they want to get pressure. And I don't know what the back end looks like. I don't know if you can bring pressure and hold up on the back end from a coverage standpoint. So it doesn't feel good defensively right now, I'll be honest with you. And then for the hey, we'll just draft a guy crowd. That may be the case. But you have no idea if that guy's going to be able to come in here and produce for you or not. And I'm all for drafting a defensive end. Don't get me wrong. We need a defensive end. We need a cornerback and explosive running back. Those are the 3 biggest needs after all of the things they've done in free agency. It is very apparent now to every Commanders fan and anybody that follows this team. It is very apparent what this team needs. Those are the 3 biggest needs, unquestioned. You could put them in whatever order you like, but those are the 3 biggest needs. Now, again, I'm not going to reach at 29 for an edge rusher. I'm not going to reach at 29 for a corner, and I'm not going to reach at 29 for a running back. If the best player on the board available at 29 is a tackle or is a wide receiver or is a linebacker, I'm going to take the best player available. That is what I am going to do. So this is not if it's a tight end, I'm taking the tight end. I am not going to reach for a football player because we have a glaring need. So let's talk about Trey Hendrickson because it leads right into that. So right now, Trey Hendrickson, the DC, feels dead. Dead, I tell you. Feels dead. Now, I'm going to tell you this. It's dead based off of all the moves that we've made. It feels dead unless Cincinnati is willing to come down considerably on their asking price. Here's the deal with Cincinnati. They never wanted to. This is not a gun to the head situation like it was with San Francisco and Deebo Samuel or the Rams and Cooper Kupp, where you knew the end result. And here with Jonathan Allen, right? With us, where you knew the end result. This is not that, right? This is a lot like the Atlanta Falcons situation with Kirk Cousins. They're picking up a $10 million roster bonus for Kirk Cousins because they already told anybody that would listen, hey, we're open to trading Kirk Cousins, but we're not giving him away. And we are more than comfortable with Kirk Cousins making the salary that he is due to make this year being a backup. We're more than comfortable. So unless you're going to come and get him by giving us some real draft capital, he's staying put. Cincinnati is in the same mindset. They never wanted to trade Trey Hendrickson. He came to them and said, trade me. And they said, you know what? You've been a good soldier. Tell you what, you go ahead and see if you can find somebody. We making an exception for you because you've done this the right way. You've handled this in a respectable manner. So we going to do you a huge solid and say, yeah, go ahead and see if you can find. But I'm going to tell you right now, we ain't taking bullshit for you. We want a first-round pick and then some. So they're making it hard for a team to trade for him. That's number one, because they really don't want to trade him, right? They want to use them up one more year, and if they can't get something done, they'll let him walk. They'll get a compensatory pick for him, and all is right with the world as far as they're concerned. They're not tripping. Trey Hendrickson is the one that's tripping because he's only getting paid $18 million, right? When all of these other edge rushers, the market has exploded. We saw what Max Crosby got. We saw what Myles Garrett just got. And we know what Michael Parsons has coming to him. And he wants his piece of the pie. He's the one frustrated. Cincinnati don't give a shit that he's upset that he's only going to be making $18 million this year. They could care less. As far as they're concerned, you're under contract, bro. So guess what? Either you're going to play here for the 18 mil, you're going to find somebody that's going to give up what we asking for, or you won't play football at all. Those are your three options. Because he's probably not going to get an extension in Cincinnati. Because I've heard rumors that these extensions for those receivers are coming in the next week or so, and they're going to be massive, as we expect with Jamar Chase. But T. Higgins' extension is going to be massive as well. So when you start paying your receivers that kind of money, it ain't no money left for Trey Hendrickson. So unless they get to a state where they're desperate and they're like, you know what? We need to move on from Trey. Unless they get to that point, and we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals here, folks. This isn't the Cleveland Browns. We're not talking about some destitute franchise who gives a shit about public perception or the morale of a locker room. They don't give a shit about none of that. Mike Brown could give two shits about what you, me, or anybody else thinks about how they handle business. And he damn sure don't care what these players think about their contracts. Once you sign the damn contract, you're under contract till we say so. So right now, it feels dead because Cincinnati, even though I've heard that they potentially are coming down on the price, it's still a second round pick. And here's why I feel like it's dead for us. I think when you look at our draft, when you look at our draft picks and our draft capital right now, we know it's a first, it's a second, it's a fourth, it's a sixth, it's a seventh. We have the 29th, the 61st, the 128th, the 205th, and the 245th pick in the draft right now. 5 selections for the Commanders. It feels like a overall punt of the 2025 NFL draft. That's what it feels like right now. I don't give a shit what you tell me about how this draft is lacking high-end blue chip talent. I don't care about any of that because my general manager is supposed to be a draft savant. He's supposed to be a guy that can find the diamond in the rough in a draft that's not supposed to be overly talented. So I don't subscribe to the Adam Peters is punting. I thought a lot about this long and hard this week about Adam Peters, you know, and I brought up the whole mindset of he's punting on this year's draft class. That's bullshit. He's not punting on this draft. There's no way. Not a guy that believes in building a roster via the draft. There's no way he's punting. Not a guy that loves 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks and loves finding guys undrafted that can come in and help his team like Tyler Owens last year. It doesn't make sense. The math ain't mathing. So in my mind, I'm saying the most 2 important picks of this draft, you're not, I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know, are our first and second round picks, but not for the reasons you think. Those are the most important picks, obviously, because those are the 2 picks that give you the best chance to land the most talented players in your entire draft class. Duh. What are you saying, Louie T? I'm telling you that those picks are the most valuable picks because they hold the most value, right? Because I just don't expect us to come out of this draft with 5 players. You're not getting Trey Hendrickson for a 4th round pick, okay? And I don't think they're trading their 1st or 2nd round pick. They've stayed away from those 2 picks intentionally, okay? In all the moves that they've made, in all the discussions that they've had, the 1st and 2nd round picks have never been in discussion. They were willing to give up a 3rd. They were willing to give up their 4th. They were willing to give up their 5th, right? 6th and 7th round picks have been on the table. They're not willing to give up their 1st and 2nd round picks because those are the big chips. Those are the ones that if you're the Commanders and you want more picks, those are the 2 picks that can net you an additional 2 or 3 draft choices in this year's class, right? Those are the 2 picks that you can flip and turn into 3 additional picks, 4 additional picks. You can't take a 4th round pick and, I mean, you can theoretically take a 4th round pick and turn it into 2 6s or 5 and a 7, right? Yeah, you could do that. That's cool. But where the meat and potatoes of this draft lie is from the 1st to the 3rd round. Maybe it extends to the 4th. That's where you want to be able to do damage. And in my mind's eye, he is more likely to trade out of 61 than he is 29. And that's why I don't think a Trey Hendrickson deal feels real anymore, because we're not giving up the 1. That's abundantly clear, because if they were going to do it, they would have done it already. All right. They're not giving up the 1. They're not giving up a 2 because that's the pick that's going to net you a 3rd, right? You don't have, which you don't have right now, and an additional 4th, which you would love to have if you're the Commanders. This isn't a draft where you necessarily have to have a bunch of high-end selections. You want quantity potentially here in that mid portion of the draft. Yes, this might be a draft where you may prefer quality over quantity, but we don't have quality picks. It'd be one thing if this draft class or our picks look like the haul we had last year, where you had 7 selections in the first 3 rounds, right? The first 2 days of the draft. Then you can say, to hell with the back end of the draft. I'll get what I need and I'll get out. You could have, with the picks we had last year, you probably could have put a package together to get you Trey Hendrickson. But right now, you just don't have that luxury. And I think if you're looking to acquire more picks, 61 and 29 are going to be the picks that are going to net you additional draft capital. So you can't trade those away. You need those to be able to have those be trade back assets for you right now. That's why Trey Hendrickson feels dead. Unless Cincinnati dramatically changes their tune and comes down on the price. And if I'm Cincinnati, what is the value in trading Trey Hendrickson for anything less than a 3? Because I'm going to get that 3 more likely than not, assuming he is able to stay consistent with his production in 2025 and then hit the market next year. The assumption is going to be that you're going to get you a compensatory pick in the 2027 draft, right? So why would you even bother trading him for a 3rd round pick? To me, or anything less than a 3rd, I personally, you can keep the 96th pick. You can keep your 84th pick in the draft. I'll just wait for 103 when I get my compensatory pick. So, and yes, 19 spots is a big difference in a draft. Absolutely. I'm fully aware. But to lose Trey Hendrickson for a season, is it worth 19 picks in draft spots in 2 years from now in the 2027 draft? I don't know if that's enough compensation for me if I'm Cincinnati, right? So I'll take my chances with him just being upset, disgruntled, but he's going to show up and play. He's going to show up and play. He has no choice. And so that deal feels dead unless they come down dramatically on the price, which they're not going to. And so the 1st and the 2nd round picks feel like massive assets for the Commanders. They want to trade out of the 1st round. And again, it takes 2. to tango. We can want to trade back all we want. Somebody's got to want to come up to get those picks. We'll see what value 29 holds in terms of who's on the board, who's available, and what we think of the guys that are available, because anything could happen. And there could be a really talented guy that we didn't expect to be there, sitting there at 29. So we'll see, right? But ultimately, I didn't expect Cleveland Farrell to be back. Just like I didn't expect Michael Dieter to be back. Those are two guys where I'm like, didn't need to see those guys back in burgundy and gold. They could have stayed right there on the free agent market. And again, they may not make the team this year, either one of them, but feels like both of them are going to be right here. When the roster gets finalized, feels like both of those dudes are going to be here. And I'm like, could have did without both of them. Could have did without both of them. So we'll see what happens. I am rationalizing in my brain, and I'm coming to grips with the fact that I don't think we're going to be able to get pressure on the quarterback this year. It's a bitter pill to swallow in a passing league that demands that you find a way to generate pressure. And if you can't, you usually get torched on the back end. And we don't have a rock solid back end right now. So for a team that has questions at both defensive end and corner, it feels like a really dicey proposition. But my confidence lies on the offensive side of the football, which is where it was last year. And that won us a lot of football games. And if the offense can do what it did last year, and again, I don't want to assume that you're going to, have the highest conversion rate on fourth downs in NFL history again. I can't imagine that that's going to be replicated this year. Will they even be as aggressive this year? Don't know. Will they have to be? I don't know. But fourth downs happen. Every week they happen. It's not like when you're a prolific offense, you don't run in the fourth down. You're going to run in the fourth down. Will we roll the dice like we did last year, and will we be successful? I can tell you this much. That quarterback keep with Jaden faking the handoff like he did against Tampa Bay, and that shit worked like 4 times last year, and it didn't work like once against the Eagles. I can tell you right now that shit ain't working next year. I've seen that play enough. I hope I wanted it expunged from the playbook last year because I felt like it was a liability that Cliff was getting way too comfortable with. When we get under center in a short yardage situation, 9 times out of 10, that's Jaden keeping the ball on a quarterback keep until otherwise notified. So I need them to find other plays that work in those short yardage situations, but that's another conversation for another day. The bottom line is if the offense can sustain itself like it did last year, then it can protect the defense like it did last year. We feel like they're better equipped this year than they were last year to be able to do it. But last year they were able to sneak up on teams. You're not sneaking up on anybody this year. You're going to have to be, legitimate from the start, and teams are going to press you every week to make you prove that you're a legitimate offense every single week. And if they can do that, if they can pass that test every week, this defense will be fine. But again, if we struggle on offense, we could be in some trouble, especially on our third down defense may be really bad this season. It might be really rough. And that's, I'm really disappointed that may be the case. I hope I'm wrong. But you got to be able to get to the quarterback. And right now, we don't have a soul that can do it on a consistent basis. It'll be a group effort as it was last year. And you're hoping Dorrance takes a step, forward and gets you to 8 instead of the 6 he had, gets you to 8.5, 9. You're hoping that Frankie can duplicate what he did last year. It'd be nice if he could even get to double digits, but hey, no pressure, right? You hope that a guy like Duran just comes to life. Again, don't hold your breath, right? Don't hold your breath. You hope a guy like Jacob Martin he shows up here and all of a sudden we maximize his talents, because there's a reason he's been traded 3 times in his career, I believe it is. because teams see the talent. They see the potential. They just, no one has ever been able to squeeze it completely out of him. So why would it be any different here? So anyway. Let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say, and then we'll get out of here. Like I said, I wasn't looking to talk your head off here tonight. I just wanted to come in. I told you I owed you a video. I wanted to talk Trey Hendrickson. I wanted to talk about those draft picks because I'm going to say this to you right now. I just don't believe Adam Peters is punting on this draft. That's not in his DNA. That's not his mindset. He's a draft guy first. And so I think he stocked the cupboard full of veteran players that in the event that, because remember, it takes two, as I mentioned, to trade. So in the event that trades, don't come up, the opportunities for him to get out of some of these picks don't arise, and he's not able to turn 5 picks into 8 or 5 into 7, right? Because really you want to at least come out with the full allotment that you are given. Every team is given 7 draft picks. You would like to come out with your full allotment, at least of 7, the standard allotment. And I see him coming away with at least 7 players in this draft. We're at 5 right now. I see him coming away with at least 7. And if that's going to happen, it's going to be either the first or the second or both that he trades back with to acquire more capital, right? So that it just feels like the Trey Hendrickson deal is dead, Terry Maples, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Terry Maples writes, remember when I said AP had something up his sleeve? Tunzel. He has one more, and it's Trey. When the price drops to a second, HTTR. I think the price might have already dropped to a second. I just don't think they're interested in giving up the second round pick. Now, again, I hope I'm wrong. And I wouldn't be shocked if they got to a sweet spot with Cincinnati where they were able to give up the second, but I think they want something in return. Like, I don't think they just want to give up, like sort of like the Laramie Tunzel deal. Like, hey, you got to throw me back a 4th, right? I know it's a steep price we got to pay to get a tackle the caliber of a Laramie Tunzel. 2 picks this year, 2 premium picks next year, but you got to toss me back a 4th, man, right? I think they would give up a second if they could get a 3rd back, right? You give me, I give you my second, and a 3rd would be like, if I'm Cincinnati, hell no, I'm not doing that. I'm not giving you Trey Hendrickson and a 3rd. But again, what are you going to get back? A 5th, maybe, right? Which we don't have right now. We don't have a 5th round pick, so you toss them back a 5th. I told you the best deal that I've heard somebody toss out there was we give up our 1, we get Trey Hendrickson, a 3rd, and a 5th from Cincinnati. I would do that. Then you would have a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th. So you would have 6 picks at that juncture, and you still have the ability to trade out of the 2nd round pick if need be, and pick up more picks, like a la the Rams, for instance. That's what they would always do. They would never have at 1st or 2nd, and they would start their draft in the 3rd round, and then they would start drafting guys like crazy from the 3rd round on to the 7th, and then they would hit all of these guys. And you're like, damn, Rams didn't have a 1st or a 2nd round pick, but they still, came out with a pretty damn solid haul, right? But you got to draft your ass off if you're going to do that. We'll see. I hope you're right about him having one more trick up his sleeve. Boy, we need an edge rusher bad. Sean Moorer, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Really appreciate your generosity. Who writes, what's up, bro? What's up, Sean? How do you know if they didn't offer him 9-10 million and he wanted 13-15? Because if you look at his history, when he's had double-digit sacks, he didn't return to that team the following season. He's only had double-digit sacks 1 time in his career prior to this. One time. So that could have been the number, right? They could have offered him 9-10 million, and he could have said, no, I want 13 to 15 million. I just find that hard to believe that he would have tried to squeeze them for that much. If they were offering 9 or 10, I think he would have tried to play hardball initially, but then ultimately took the deal, right? Now, it could have been one of those situations where, hey, we offering you this right now, but if you don't take it right now, we taking this off the table, right? We're taking this deal off the table because we got other shit to do with our money. So if you don't want this deal, now when we're offering it to you, we're going to spread this money out over 3 or 4 different dudes. So it's your choice. Take the deal now or it's gone. And he might have scoffed at it. But the reality of the situation is I just don't think they wanted to spend that kind of money on a situational pass rusher. He was not brought here to stop the run. He was brought here to get after the quarterback. And to me, this is, again, we can only go off of what we've seen in the 2 years he's been here. He's divulged no more than $3.5 million to the situational pass rusher position on this roster. I don't think he had any intentions of spending any more than $6 million. 7, maybe 7. And Fowler probably wanted 10. That's my guess. I don't know. You're right. We'll never know. And I said this already, which is why I always told you. I also told you guys, don't look at what he got from Dallas and assume that we could have paid him that, because that's probably not the case. He probably took less to go to Dallas because the money's starting to dry up around the league. So now I got to take what I can get. It's the same thing that happened to C.J. Gardner-Johnson when he turned down a 3-year deal with Philadelphia that would have given him more guaranteed money than what he ultimately got on a 1-year deal from Detroit, because he played his hand, right? He played his hand, and it was the incorrect play on his part, right? He called the Eagles bluff, and the Eagles were like, bro, we're not going up no more, but this is a good deal for you. And he was like, come on, man, I'm worth more than that. And they was like, bro, take the deal, stop. And he was like, nah, I'm not doing that. And it was like, all right, bet. He went to Detroit. It was a disastrous year. He didn't get anywhere near the amount of money he thought he was going to get. And then he came crawling back to Philadelphia the next year, right? So sometimes guys just play their hand incorrectly. And once you do that, sometimes you got to take a little bit less. Again, I'm not saying that that's what happened. That's my read of the situation. That's my read of the situation. Ben Jones, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Ben writes, hey, Lou, Dante Fowler Jr. signed with Dallas 1 year, $8 million. Yeah, talked about that already. And kind of saw it coming. The writing was on the wall that once we signed our situational pass rusher, he was gone. And I talked about that on the last video. I said, well, that's it for Dante Fowler Jr. He won't be back. Because I was holding out hope like a dummy that somehow cooler heads would prevail, that the two sides would, maybe find a good middle ground and they would get something done. But there was clearly an impasse there, and no one was willing to budge on their side, and so it didn't get done. And they just went to Jacob Martin. They pivoted, went to Jacob Martin, and he had to find work, and he went where he was comfortable, right? It was either here or Dallas. So he went back to Dallas. Lang Hughes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Lang Hughes writes, could sign Noah Brown part 2 at edge preseason, ton of time. You're not wrong, right? Teams have to release players, and you never know, right? Somebody could shake free, and, a guy that we didn't expect to get cut could get cut. I mean, hell, the Eagles are trying to trade Bryce Huff. Maybe they cut him. And that's your new situational pass rusher. Be a massive upgrade over the shit we got right now. So you never know, right? You never know. Who knows what's going to take place. But as of right now, and again, I've said this already to you guys when we started this process, what the roster looks like now isn't what it's going to look like in September as we start to get this thing rolling. So I'm not tripping. I'm just prepare yourself mentally, because there's only so much they can do. Even if we went out and signed one guy as a pass rusher that you feel good about, it's still not going to change the fact that we're still void of real true pass rush talent. Because what happens if we go out and get a guy? Okay, for instance, and I don't want to put this in the atmosphere, but we trade for Trey Hendrickson. He comes here, and then what happens if something happens to him? Well, you're back to square one. So we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket and say, well, oh, we got us a guy now, we should be fine at edge rusher. Because if something happens to that guy, now you're back to Cleveland Farrell starting at defensive end, or Dietrich Wise starting at defensive end for you. So again, I mean, our situation is what it is at this point. It could get a little bit better with, a draft pick or an acquisition of some sort that gives you some sort of belief, or at least there's a track record of this guy having some success in the league, getting to the quarterback. That'll make you feel better, but it doesn't cure all of our ills, right? So, I mean, we are what we are. I'm so confident in this offense's ability to move the ball and put it in the end zone that we'll be fine. This doesn't change the way I feel about this team, nor the trajectory, nor the potential. That's the word I was looking for. This doesn't change the potential of this team as a Super Bowl contender, because we made the offense, which was already damn good, better. That was the strength of the team. We just made it stronger. And we made it all the way to the NFC Championship with the offense being, with our kicking game, by the way, being somewhat faulty, which is also something that we haven't talked a lot about that needs upgrading as well. Okay. I don't think any of us are comfortable with us going into the season with Zane Gonzalez as the kicker. I know I'm sure as hell not. I can't speak for any of you out there. There at least needs to be true competition brought in. And if he wins the competition, so be it. But I don't see how they don't bring in somebody to compete with Zane Gonzalez at some point. So there's that as well. King of the Bluegrass, been a member for 36 months. Salute. Congratulations on the 3-year Annie, man. Really, truly do appreciate you. Who writes, I'm so confused. Besides the left tackle position, not one aspect of this roster is improved. I disagree vehemently. The offseason has seemed to not have any plan and completely pointless. Very disappointed. I disagree with that whole statement. The left tackle itself is upgraded off the strength of Laramie Tunsil, but it upgraded the entire offensive line, right? So that whole group was upgraded just by the presence of Laramie Tunsil because of what it allows you to do with Brandon Coleman now. So you fixed 2 positions with 1 move. All right. Deebo Samuel's arrival upgraded the entire wide receiver room. So you've gotten better there. And that's a trickle-down effect as well, because we didn't really have a true number 2, even though Noah Brown operated as one last season. You now have a true number 2 option. He may not be the typical, number 2 wide receiver, the prototypical number 2 wide receiver. You line up out wide and you throw him the football, but he's going to provide us with number 2 production from an all-purpose standpoint, is Deebo Samuel. All right. And now Noah Brown becomes your 3rd option, which is a damn good 3rd option based off of what he gave us last year when he was filling in as a pseudo number 2. So that wide receiver room has gotten better. All right. Running back, we assume that they're going to draft someone. So that's TBD. Tight end, we knew that it wasn't going to change. I told you guys that before the season ended last year. I said, I hope you see the writing on the wall. They're going to bring back Ertz, which they should. They're going to bring back Bates, which they should. And obviously, Senate, you're thinking he's going to take a step forward. We'll see. And they like Kosin Yankov. That room isn't going to change. That's fine. That room was great last year, right? So we'll see what happens this year. All right. Go to the other side of the ball. The defensive line, it's better. It's deeper, right? From a talent perspective, this is a more talented group than we had last year. Well, I shouldn't say that. I should not say that. is I felt better about the defensive line we had last year going into the season than what we have right now. I felt great about Dante Fowler Jr. You know how I felt about him. I felt good about the Bama Wall, even though we were a little down on them. I was like, well, let's see what happens with this new scheme. They may be the guys that really benefit from this. We had Johnny Newton coming as a draft pick, so that made you feel warm and fuzzy. You had Dorrance coming over. I love Frankie Louvu. So a little bit more last year, right? We got more depth. I'll say that. More depth. We were trying out Jamin Davis as an edge rusher last year. Don't forget. Like, let's not act like we were super talented on the defensive line last year. We had Jamin Davis out there running around trying to become a defensive end. Okay. So I think it's a wash on the defensive line right now because we're better against the run, but right now it doesn't feel like we'll be able to get to the quarterback. So there's a trade-off there. Linebacker, I think it's the same as it was last year. You could see an upgrade there with Dominique Hampton getting an opportunity this year. We'll see. And then secondary, we didn't have a number one corner last year. When the season started last year, we didn't have a number one corner. We have one. Marshawn Lattimore is going to be just fine. Excuse me. I truly believe that. And Mikey Saberstill is going to be great in year 2. And, you know, Jonathan Jones, we'll see what he is. We'll see what he is. Will Harris, we'll see, right? That's TBD, right? As far as filling in for Jeremy Chin, TBD. But I like the positions that we've been put in, right? Because at corner, all you got to do is find one more guy. And whether that's in the draft or free agency, doesn't make me one bit of difference. All you got to do is find one more guy that you feel really good about. That's it. That's it. You do that, and this cipher feels complete at corner. Because I love the depth we have at corner right now with Lattimore, Mikey, Noah, Jonathan Jones. Those 4 right there, I feel good about that group. I would like one more starter, right? One more guy, and maybe Jonathan Jones is your starter, and you draft a guy, and as long as you got something else there, I feel good about it. But just knowing that in a pinch, I can take Noah Igbenogany, put him in, take Mikey, move him outside, or take Jonathan Jones, move him inside, take Mikey and put him outside. Just knowing I have that in my back pocket makes me feel good about the secondary. So I disagree. This roster is better than it was last year. How much better? Only time will tell. But it's clearly a better roster. Little disappointed in us not pursuing a high-level corner, but what that says is either, and I don't know if you guys saw this, so let me say this. John Keim had a great podcast on Friday, I believe it was. He was Thursday or Friday's podcast. I listened to the whole thing, and he dropped some gems on my melon. And in case you didn't listen to it, I'll fill you in on the short version. He said that this team was in on Joey Bosa and DeMarcus Lawrence, but that the price got a little bit too high on both of those guys. Now, I would not have been over the moon on Joey Bosa just because of his health and how much he's been banged up, and giving him $12.5 million for him to play in 2 games fully healthy and another 6, barely hanging on. I'm good, right? But DeMarcus Lawrence, on the other hand, he basically missed all of last year. I want to say it was an upper body injury, so that doesn't really worry me. And he probably got a little bit left in the tank. And having played in this scheme would have been a good fit. That 3-year, there's no way he was getting a 3-year deal here, which is probably why he went to Seattle. There was no way he would have got a 1-year deal here, right? And if he was willing to take a 1-year, $12 million deal, I think they would have done that. But he ended up getting 3 years, 45, I want to say 15 of it fully guaranteed. So that's that was a bit much for us. So they weren't in that sweepstakes after it got to that level, but they were in on both of those players. So it shows you that they realized that they needed to do something at defensive end, and they weren't willing to overspend, which I get, right? It wasn't a great free agency crop to begin with. So Com also said, you remember, I know a number of you said, or I know Ed in particular kept saying, DJ Reed, DJ Reed, DJ Reed. And DJ Reed, when he was having his introductory press conference with the Lions, said it came down to the Commanders and the Lions. And the Commanders, staff and their brass was like, I don't know where that's coming from. We weren't in on DJ Reed. And that makes sense to me, because I told you, I was like, we're not in on DJ Reed. I don't think he fits what they're looking for. But then they go out and sign Jonathan Jones, and I'm like, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe Ed was right. Maybe they were in on DJ Reed, because their statures are very similar. And they were like, no, we weren't in on DJ Reed. I don't know what he was talking about. He might have been choosing between those two teams, like telling his agent, I want to go to one of those two teams. But it doesn't sound like the Commanders, from what John Keim is reporting, it doesn't sound like the Commanders were very high on him and we're looking to offer him anything. So just wanted to throw that out there. But they were in the cornerback market, as we assumed, but they didn't come away with anything. So again, they had a number. One thing I can give them credit for this year is because Adam Peters strikes me as a guy that if it's a guy that he truly desires, he will pay the price. He'll pay the $5, right? But if he's not, blown away, he'll set the number here and he's not going a penny over. And if you're not willing to take what that number is, then he'll just go somewhere else. He'll pivot and he'll go somewhere else. And that's what he probably did with Jeremy Chin. It's probably what happened with Dante Fowler Jr. So, it is what it is. And so I get that you're not thrilled with the defensive moves. I get it. But to say that this roster only has improved in one area, and that's left tackle, I think that's unfair. But again, I get it. I understand your frustration with, the defense in particular. Spence Kalis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I feel we must win games with our offense again. That's what it feels like right now. And again, it's a lot of time. It's plenty of time left. Everything's subject to change, right? Everything is still within reach of this team. You still can change your roster from now till September, 3-4 times over. Like he said, there's still this secondary market of, free agency, the second wave. You still got draft, you got post-draft free agency, and then you have post-preseason roster cuts, pickups. So there's still a number of options for the Commanders before we get to playing meaningful football. So nothing's etched in stone, right? But that's what it feels like. Absolutely. I agree. Lonnie Broom, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show Lonnie some love. Welcome him with open arms. Welcome to the squad. Lonnie Broom, so glad to have you on board. Michael Mason II, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, Santana or Terry, thoughts on Bashad Smith? So I was a big Tanner Man fan, but give me Terry. Tanner was awesome. Tanner had some big years. I think he still holds the record for most receiving yardage in a single season by a Commanders wide receiver. I think that is the Tanner Man back in 2005, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll always have the Monday Night Miracle, and that's a play that will be forever etched in Washington Redskins and Washington football lore. But give me Terry's consistency, man. Like Tanner, I think only had 2,000-yard seasons here. I think I could be wrong about that. he had some big years, and he had a couple of stretches there where he was phenomenal for us. But Tana didn't have the type of consistency that Terry did. Tana was a dog, though, for his size. You knew you could count on him. But you know what? Tana also had a fumbling problem, and Tana would be out there juking, trying to make a play, spinning, and then boop, that ball come out at some very inopportune times. And Terry, he doesn't fumble. Nah, he ain't the route runner that Tana was. He ain't the, as explosive with the ball in his hands like Tana was. Tana was also a punt returner, you guys. Remember, they had the big punt return against Detroit for a touchdown. So Tana was dynamic, but Terry's consistency, man, that's hard to come by in this league. And Terry's had to do it. Not that Santana had the best quarterbacks either, but Terry having to do it with at least Santana's quarterbacks weren't complete dog water. I mean, he played with Brunell. He played with Jason Campbell. He played with Bobby Three Sticks at the very end of his career. And I'm trying to think. He had some Donovan McNabb. Boy, we had some bad quarterback situations. He had some John Beck. Yeah, he had some bad ones too, but Terry is the man. Terry's the man. Bashad Smith is a guy that I think, former wide receiver, turned running back out of SMU, tons of speed. He's exactly what I'm looking for, to be honest with you. That kind of guy to add to the mix. And because of his receiver background, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So that's an added plus. I don't know if he's necessarily ready to help you as a blocker, but that's what you got Eckler for. That's what you got B-Rob for. That's what you got, if he is to make this team, that's what you have Jeremy McNichols for. So, Smith would be a great addition to this team. Somebody of that ilk for sure. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, video channel writes, Lou, video channel. You think Fowler's production was more so the scheme than him? Like the stats show, he's only got double-digit sacks one other time. What was the scheme? Like, what did we do here that was so unique that allowed him to take advantage? Remember, this was probably the same defense they played in Dallas. Except they probably had way more talent than we did up front. They did have way more talent than we had up front. Osa Odigizua, Micah Parsons, Tank Lawrence, Dante Fowler Jr. When they would put all those guys on the field, man, it was hell to deal with. What made here so unique? He just won. He had a hell of a season. I don't think it had anything to do with the scheme. Just think he won one-on-one matchups. Sometimes quarterback held onto the ball a little bit longer and he was able to get there, but a lot of his wins were, instant wins. Get into the backfield. So, I don't think it was scheme-based. I don't. Just think he had a really good season. And it happens. He's talented. Those years happen. He's talented. Rob U, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Rob U writes, what up, Lou? What up, Rob U? Trust AP, but a bit confused on a few signings. Would have bet my retirement that they would have only signed one of the big corners on day one. Thoughts on Pierce at 29 if available. You and me both would have been broke and living out on the streets, because I would have bet you just about everything I had that we were getting a corner in free agency, like a big time corner in free agency, or someone that had some sort of upside, because Mike Jack wouldn't have been a big time. He signed for $14.5 million on a 2-year deal with Carolina. Like, that would not have been a big time signing for a lot of you, but that would have been for me. But they didn't even do that, right? The pure negligence at defensive end, and when I say negligence, I'm talking with the ability to get to the quarterback. Like Jacob Smith doesn't make me feel good about, our position there. And the lack of a big, name with production and, chops in this league. Again, Jonathan Jones has production and has chops in this league. Won 2 Super Bowls, very versatile defender. The more and more I watch him, the more and more I become more of a fan of what he can provide us with because of his versatility, because he's played inside, because he's played outside, because he can play safety. That he seems like a guy that may ultimately become sort of like Noah Igbenogany last year, or Mikey more so than Noah, invaluable piece for us. But it still doesn't make me feel great about what's opposite of Marshawn Lattimore right now. And I thought they would have done something to really put that to rest, knowing the division that we play in, knowing that you need 2 corners, especially if you're trying to beat Philadelphia, to not, take care of that. And again, Jones may, be able to take care of that for you. He may be able to take care of that for you. We'll see. But Pierce at 29 ain't going to happen. But if he's there, yeah, you absolutely take him. Absolutely. But again, he's probably the most explosive pass rusher in this year's draft class. His get off is ridiculous. You absolutely take him. After what he did at the combine, there's no way he's going to be there at 29. No way. Not in my mind's eye, at least. Excuse me. Rob, you double up. Thank you for doubling up. Greatly appreciate you. Rob, you writes, think Coleman can be a good right tackle, but a dominant left guard. And that again, I feel like he's built for the guard life in this league, but that's for them to decide. A lot of guys could be good. Like Zach Martin could have played right tackle in the NFL, but he was a Hall of Fame guard. Okay. So to me, they got a decision to make on what they think he can be best utilized as. Because sure, he could play right tackle, but could he be a Pro Bowl guard, or will he just be a serviceable right tackle? And you got to make that decision. So I think that's something they got to decide. Sean Blake, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Sean Blake writes, do we get comp picks with these 1-year deals if they leave in via free agency next year? Seems like AP strategy. Appreciate all you do in your content, Lou. So no, we don't. And you could, but no. So what happens is generally you get comp picks. It's almost what leaves versus what comes in. And it's amount of money that you spend versus, and it's an equation that they use, but it's basically how many guys do you have going out that get big contracts versus what you have coming in? Like the Eagles are going to probably get a compensatory pick in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds next year, which is like Howie Roseman is playing chess. As much as I hate Howie Roseman and I don't love giving him credit, he's playing chess right now. Like they let all of those, like last year, remember, they wanted to trade Josh Sweat and he wanted out. And they restructured his deal, gave him a little slight pay raise on a 1-year deal so that he would be happy. And he took care of business. And now he left in free agency. They had no intentions of signing him last year when he wanted to be traded. And they tried to shop him last year. So you knew they weren't going to sign him this year, right? Let him walk. Let the defensive tackle walk, right? Let Mekhi Becton walk. And they're going to get comp picks for all of those guys leaving. Instead of us holding on to Jonathan Allen, which is what I advocated for them to do, right? I would not have cut Jonathan Allen. We did not need the $16 million. It's nice to have, but I would have let him leave in free agency hoping that he got a deal next year that would have netted you a comp pick. Instead, you cut him, you get nothing for him signing that 3-year, $60 million deal. And none of these guys that we signed this year are going to leave. These 30, 31, 30, 32-year-old dudes, they're not leaving and getting deals anywhere else. That's not going to be more money than what we have coming in that's going to net us a compensatory pick. So when it's all said and done, we ain't getting shit. Guys got to leave and get paid elsewhere in order to get comp picks. And you have to not have money coming in where you spend it on guys, right? So to offset it. Like the Eagles didn't really sign anybody in free agency of note this year. They kind of took care of all of their guys. They're going to go through the draft. They signed a guy here, there, the running back from Green Bay they signed, and they signed Adoree Jackson. Like these are small 1 year minimal deals, right? While they got these massive contracts going out to, for Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, and Mekhi Becton got a nice little 2-year deal. These are all comp picks coming back to them. So, yeah, it's levels to this shit, man. It's levels. But, again, they're in a different stage of their development than we are, right? In their program, rather. They're not in a development stage. We are in a development stage. We're trying to set the groundwork for what we want to be. They're already established. They've been established. So we can't compare ourselves to them because we're not the same, right? They've been operating at this level for the better part of a decade. We're just starting out. So you can't look at them and say, we got to do what they're doing. We got to do what works for us. They don't have a quarterback on a rookie deal that they're trying to take advantage of. So, looks a little bit different. Antisocial Sully, been a member for 16 months. Who writes, how you feel about Azeez Ojulari as a situational edge? I would have thought that would have been a guy that you kicked the tires on. John Comm said on his podcast that they did reach out to his representation, but nothing was ever like close to getting done. There was never ever a number thrown out there, any real talks, but they did, kind of kick the tires on that situation. My guess is they might have been looking for a little bit more than again, you see the type of money we trying to spend at situational pass rusher. I don't know what Ojulari is ultimately going to get, but clearly they have a number set for that position and they're not looking to really exceed that. So I think that's what ultimately happened with him. I would have definitely been more interested in him than what we have, right? Way, way more interested. So, Pit Fight Entertainment, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show Pit Fight Entertainment some love. Welcome them with open arms. Welcome to the squad. So glad to have you on board, Pit Fight Entertainment. Speaking of which, welcome and thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being the newest member of the MOBB. Pit Fight Entertainment writes, 100% behind AP on all decisions. Long run coming. Look, I'm not going to tell you that I am 100% behind every decision he makes, but I am 100% supportive of him. You will never, ever hear me doubt Adam Peters. I may doubt a move that he makes, but everything that he does is, for me, in the grand scheme of things, big picture. He's seeing the big picture. He's seeing the short-term situation, the long-term. We're in it for the long haul. I trust him unequivocally. Unequivocally. Won't agree with every move that's made. Don't agree with bringing Michael Dieter back. Don't agree with bringing Cleveland Farrell back. But I am 100% behind him. Not a doubt, and I'm not wavering one iota. He's going to lead us to the promised land. Chauncey Davis, OG triple OG. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, CD, writes, Lou, O-line Bobby Johnson is like a kid in a candy store with all the new additions. Who are your D-line coaches? They should be excited also. Well, for one, I know that Daryl Tapp, who is our defensive line coach, he worked with Javon Kinlaw before. So there was, again, a working relationship there. Part of the reason why I think they brought Javon Kinlaw in here was because of their working knowledge of who he is and what he could provide them with. And having, history with Daryl Tapp also probably played a part into that. O-line Bobby Johnson, highly criticized last year when we signed him. one of the guys that I don't think got enough credit for what he did last season, and a lot of people owe him an apology, right? I'm probably one of them, and I don't think I was too mean last year, but I definitely wasn't nice to him. But I definitely said, let's take a wait and see approach. But I'm pretty sure there was some jabs in there. There was some smart remarks, and I'm excited about everything except O-line Bobby Johnson. There was probably some of that. So I'm probably just as guilty as some of you out there. He was outstanding. I don't think we gave him enough credit for what he was able to do last year. So shout out to O-line Bobby Johnson, man. Did a hell of a job. And now he's going to have even more talent at his disposal this year when to see what this offensive line is able to do. Warren Allen, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Really appreciate you, Warren Allen. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. LT writes, the road back to the Super Bowl looking easy. The NFC QB's mid. I mean, I guess you're talking about Jalen Hurts. Straight Jacket is one of the mid quarterbacks you're talking about. I'm guessing. I kid. Glizzy McGuire, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, for how deep our pockets are, we skimping everybody. Well, again, I've been a big proponent of just because you got it don't mean you got to spend it. So if you don't believe in the talent, then I'm not going to overspend for it. I'm not going to pay top dollar for mid talent. I mean, we've done that many a years here in Washington. Then we did the opposite, which is what we're kind of doing now, where we got these minimal deals for guys that weren't very good. The difference is the guys that we spent on last year did turn out to be good for us, and hopefully the same can be said for the guys that we signed this year. But when Bruce Allen was here, it looked a lot like this, right? Getting a bunch of guys on cheap deals and feeling really good and patting yourself on the back for getting a bunch of, basic players on meager deals and not spending a ton of money, right? Just doing shit for the sake of doing it. That doesn't feel like this, but if you're a pessimist, then you could spin it and say that's what it feels like. Just based off of what we did last year, I would say you at least have to give Adam Peters the benefit of the doubt. Seeing what he did last year and was able to help this team do what they did last year, you at least got to give him the benefit of the doubt to say, let's see what happens. Sean Moore, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, bro, Tana had 2 1,100-yard seasons and one almost 1,500-yard season with 1483. That's the season that I was talking about, where I think that was the season that set the record. I don't think anybody's eclipsed that. I don't think. And 1,000 yards season, total 10,000 yards and 66 touchdowns. He was really good here. I told you, don't get me on the numbers. Don't get me on particulars. He had some good seasons here. He had a hell of a stretch here. He was really good. And he's one of the best receivers in franchise history. But when Terry's done, he's going to break every one of his records he's going to exceed Tana in every statistical category if he continues on the path that he's on, which we have no reason to doubt that he's going to do, except touchdowns. That's the one place that Terry has really struggled in his career. And again, if last year is any indication of where he's going with Jaden, that 66 touchdowns may not be safe either, right? Because what did he have? 14 last year? The record was either 12 or 13. I think the record was 13, and he caught the 14th touchdown against Dallas. I could be wrong, and it could be the record was 12, and he got the 13th touchdown against Dallas. Whatever the case may be, he absolutely smashed his previous career high, which was 7 last year. And if he can go back to the double-digit store again and make that a thing, that 66 might be in question in terms of Tana Man's career numbers. But the thing is, you have the benefit. You sound like you're a Tana fan, which is fine. Like, we all family. Like, they're all family, so it doesn't matter. But you have the benefit of seeing what Santana Moss's entire body of work looked like. Terry McLaurin still has 5-6 more seasons of ball left before we need to start looking at his full body of work here and analyzing. He's going to pass 10,000 yards receiving. I mean, he's had essentially 1,000 yards every year of his career. And if not for the injury he had at the end of his rookie season, he would have been on some Mike Evans shit right now where he would have had all those 1,000-yard seasons to start his career. Again, he doesn't have that one season that Tanner had where he went, bonkers for almost 1,500, but that could be coming. Now that Debo's here, maybe with some help, maybe that could, be the case this year. We'll see. But I'm still rolling with Terry. Mulugeta Marantha, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, "Hey Lou, from new players we've signed thus far, who won't make the 53? I mean, of the new players, that's an interesting question because right now it doesn't feel like any of the new guys is on the outside looking in right now. So let's go through. I'm not going to remember every new guy that was signed here. I'm not even going to hold you, but I don't need to. Let's just go to Spot Rat and let's just look at the guys we signed. Kinlaw's making this team. Will Harris is making this team. Jonathan Jones is making this team. Dietrich Wise is making this team. And Jake Martin is making this team. Okay. The reason I say those guys are definitely making this team, all of those guys have guaranteed deals, guaranteed money. All right. Jacob Martin signed for $3 million, and it's $3 million guaranteed. All right. No, I'm lying. None of those guys have guaranteed money as of right now. But they're not cutting Dietrich Wise. They're not cutting Jacob Martin. Those guys are making the team. Now, Eddie Goldman, who thinks Eddie Goldman's getting cut? I don't. And Nate Herbig. That's the list of guys who are new here. If I had to say somebody didn't make the team, if you force me to pick somebody, I'd tell you it's Nate Herbig. But I think he's making the team too. Like, again, I'm going to choose the guys they brought here over the guys that were here before they got here. So I look at Nate Herbig and I say, uh-oh, this is bad news for Chris Paul, right? Because they didn't pick Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul being able to play tackle a little bit, helped him last year, but I don't think it's going to help him this year. Now that you have Laramie Tunsil, and now that Andrew Wiley becomes a tackle option, you still have Trent Scott back. I don't see, if you're looking at, Chris Paul is a guard now. Nate Herbig is probably going to take his spot. They got Nate Herbig here as a center guard combo. So again, that's spot rag. It's not the team doing that. But again, I think all of the guys we signed from the outside coming into the building are going to make the team. But if you force me to pick one, I'd say Nate Herbig is the lesser of the evils right now. Warren Allen, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Really appreciate you, Warren Allen. So Ninja X, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Trunk candidate or C-Rod the God. So Trunk candidate is near and dear to my heart because when I was playing Matt, he was on the team back in my Madden playing days. One thing you loved back in those days playing Madden is you loved players with speed, and Trunk candidate could run. So even though he was ass, it didn't matter on Madden if a dude was good or not. If he was fast as shit, you could do damage with him. So I was one of those dudes that if I was playing for money, I wasn't picking the Redskins. Okay, we weren't talented enough. The only year I was picking the Redskins was 2005, because around that time we had Sean Taylor, LeVar Arrington, LaRon Landry, like that defense was crazy. I could do so much with that defense. That defense was wild in 05. But by the time, that I was heading out of my Madden, days by the time 05 rolled around. I was great getting to that twilight zone. I think I got out of that Madden game for good around 08, maybe 09. So Trunk candidate, as you could imagine, on some teams that weren't very good, he offered you a ton of speed, but C-Rod is way better than Trunk candidate but Trunk candidate has some years in St. Louis with the Rams. He wasn't shit here. You just talking about strictly as a commander or a Redskin / commander. Chris Rodriguez, even though he didn't have a ton of production here, he's better than Trunk candidate. But from my Madden purposes, give me Trunk candidate. Warren Allen, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Warren writes, Lou, what edge rusher that's out there that fits Joe Wicks Jr.'s coaching style? I don't know what's available. I don't think it's really, again, Zadarius Smith, if he's still available. Let me look and see if Zadarius Smith is still available. Because to me, he must be asking for too much money. And again, I've said this already. He's one of those dudes at his age now where you can probably just wait. Like, you don't have to sign Zadarius Smith. He'll be there. And I mean, he's still there now, and somebody may sign him this week. But let's see if he's still available first and foremost. I don't think I missed that. So Zadarius Smith is still available. He's 32 years old. He'll be 30. I think he'll turn 33 early in the season. So he fits defensively what we want to do. Emmanuel Ogbah is still available. He kind of fits what you would want to do. Even Dennis Gardeck of Arizona, who's 31 years, I would have taken him as a situational pass rusher. He's had some injuries, though, but I don't know what it would cost you. But even Dennis Gardeck would have been a better option at situational pass rusher to me. But again, that's just me. Azeez Ojulari is still available. Dallas had Carl Lawson. Again, I don't know if they overlapped or not. Jalen Holmes is still out there. I wouldn't be shocked if they brought him back. Shit, they bringing everybody else back. I wouldn't be shocked if they brought Jalen Holmes back. But yeah, there's still guys. I told you the edge rusher market, and I told y'all this a while ago. I'm not worried. There's plenty of it's plenty of like defensive ends that I think would have been better options than the ones we've signed. But again, the money is what it comes down to. Like, we can sit here and say, yeah, go get Zadarius Smith. How much is he asking for? Because clearly Adam Peters ain't out here just handing out, money to everybody that we're signing, right? Clearly he isn't willing to give up XYZ to a guy that might be, past his prime, or, they don't feel like it's going to give them the best bang for their buck. Clearly he ain't just out here saying, hey, let's go get a name. Don't give a shit about that, clearly. How can I maximize the amount of money I'm spending? If I'm gonna spend $12 million, I better get $12 million worth. So instead of spending 12, let me spend 3 on this dude, and I won't be disappointed if he gives me $3 million worth of production. That's what I'm paying for. So I won't be disappointed if Dietrich Wise, you paying him $5 million, 1 year, $5 million deal for Dietrich Wise. Well, I won't be disappointed if he goes out and gets me 4 sacks. I paid $5 million for a guy to get me play the run, be physical up front, and get me 3 or 4 sacks. That's what I paid him to do. That's what they paid Clelin Ferrell to do last year. But you'll be pissed off if you pay Joey Bosa $12.5 million for him to get you 4 sacks, or you be pissed off if you pay Zadarius Smith $10 million to get you 3 sacks this year. I don't think he would do that, but again, I think that's kind of how Adam Peters is wired. Pit Fight Entertainment, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? For clarity, 100% behind him sitting in the GM chair. Agree, one is 100% correct all the time, but future is bright in his hands. Oh, well, for sure. Like 100%. Like, I know what you're saying. I just trust in Adam Peters. Period. We won't always see eye to eye on everything that he decides to do, but I don't care about that. You're never going to agree with somebody 100% of the time. I don't give a shit who they are. You don't agree with your mama 100% of the time. You don't agree with your wife or your significant other. You're right 100% of the time. You don't agree with the big man upstairs 100% of the time. But guess what you do? You trust that whatever he does, whatever his plan is, you're going to follow it. Right? With AP, it's the same thing. I don't necessarily agree with everything he is doing, but I trust him wholeheartedly. I trust him. And he's not going to lead us astray. So that's kind of where I am, and I feel like that's where you are as well. A1 the Great. Been a member for 35 months. We almost at that 3-year Annie. Who writes, Lou, we still got money. What team is this? LOL. Chef P, we trust. Yeah, like that's the point, is you want financial flexibility. What if somebody shakes free? What if somebody comes free? You need to have some money to be able to jump all over an opportunity if it should present itself after the draft. We talked about this. What if a team has a veteran player that is due a roster bonus on May 1st, right? After the draft. And they draft a bunch of dudes and they feel good about it. And now they got a chance to free up $12 million worth of cap space by cutting this player. Or they got a $10 million, they got a $7 million roster bonus that they don't want to sign that's due on May 1st. So they cut him. Oh, shit, here we go, right? You just never know. You rather have it than not have it. Pit Fight Entertainment, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, for clarification, I am 100% behind him sitting in the GM chair. I agree, no one is 100% correct all the time, but the future is bright in his hands. And again, we just read that, but yes, I second that statement. Chauncey Davis, been a member for 38 months. Salute to the OG, triple OG, Mr. CD. Really appreciate you. Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Deion Sanders said winning is intoxicating. I hope our fans realize this year, too, instead of year 5, he says, I am an in the trenches guy, and Philadelphia is the standard bearer on both sides of the line. Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. They've set the standard. That's what everyone's chasing. Not just in the division, not just in the conference, but really in the league. They're the standard. So we happen to play in the same division as them. So if you want to compete with them, you better shore up both lines. And we've done that. Now, we can't get to the quarterback right now, but Saquon Barkley shouldn't be running for, 160 yards against us every time we play them, or be on pace for it. But because he didn't need to, they didn't have to. But I like the emphasis that was placed on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I just think there was a little bit of an overcorrection in terms of the run defense. Like, feels like they did just a bit too much there and not enough in terms of trying to get to the quarterback. But I understand it. I get it. Winning is intoxicating. And I talked about this vicious flavor, delicious cycle. Winning begets confidence, confidence begets winning, and you just repeat over and over again. It's a vicious flavor, delicious cycle. Hopefully that's one that continues to repeat here in Washington. Kevin, the PRF, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, per Mega 412, opinion on Chidobe Awuzie. I'm good on him. He was a guy that I liked 3 years ago before he went to Cincinnati, when he was a free agent. Same thing with Mike Hilton. That was a guy I loved. You know how I felt about Mike Hilton 3 years ago before he signed that deal with Cincinnati. I'm good on Mike Hilton now, just like I'm good on Chidobe Awuzie. If you're going to do that, you might as well go get Kendall Fuller, right? You're going to go get Chidobe Awuzie, you might as well go get Kendall Fuller instead. Like, I'm good on Chidobe or Chidobe. But the thing is, I believe overlapped in Dallas for a year. I believe. I'm not sure about that, but I believe his last year in Dallas was DQ's first year in Dallas. And then he got a deal in 22, 23, and 24. I think he signed a 3-year deal with Cincinnati after the 21 season. I could be wrong about that. So don't quote me there, but I'm good on him. Somebody else had asked me, how did I feel about Chidobe Awuzie? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. But again, sometimes those ties, as we saw with Javon Kinlaw, they run deep. I wouldn't be shocked if they signed him, but I don't think they will. I think that last corner spot is reserved for a rookie. That's what I believe. They've done everything that they needed to do from a veteran standpoint. Bringing back Noah Igbenogany, signing Jonathan Jones. They still got some young guys that they have, like on the practice squad, that's going to be a part of this 90-man roster heading into camp. So I think that last spot is reserved for a rookie right now. But, you know, anything's possible. Anything's possible. I could see them signing one more veteran, a la James Pierre last year. I can see them signing one more veteran. So, and it could be Chidobe Awuzie. But he's had issues staying healthy. Let me see. I think he might have played. I think the last 2 years he's been pretty banged up in Cincinnati. I could be wrong about that. Let's check and see. Let's see if they added him up here. No, he ain't up here yet. So what I'll do is I'll type his name in and see what he's been doing. Yeah, so the Titans released him, and he's 29. Let me see. So last year he played in 8 games, started 7 of them, which is a big part of the reason why they cut him, because he was never healthy, and he seems like he's never healthy. I don't want to sign up for a dude that's not healthy, and he wasn't healthy in Cincinnati either. He played in 15 games in 20. 23, so 2 years ago. Started 10 of them. But then the year before that, 8 games played, 8 games started before his season was cut short due to injury. So every other year he plays and stays healthy. Because the year before that, he played 14 games, started 14 games in Cincinnati. And then the year before that, so I was wrong. His last year in Dallas was 2020. So he did not overlap with DQ in them. So that makes me think even it's less likely that he'll come here. And in that 2020 year, 8 games played, 5 games started. Injury cut his season short. So no, I'm not interested in him for all the reasons that I told you. And then you add to now the fact that he is not a DQ Joe Witt guy. No, don't see him coming here. Red House, not Roadhouse. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Red House, not Roadhouse, writes. Thoughts on Aziz, Lou? Talked about him numerous times. I still don't know why no one signed him. There's certain guys that I'm a bit baffled as to why they last as long as they do. I was baffled as to why no one for the second straight year wanted any parts of Mekhi Becton, but the Chargers finally remedied that by signing him. But why Elijah Moore hasn't been signed as a guy with high upside, tons of talent, but just lacking the production. Don't know why he hasn't signed and found a home. Don't know why Azeez Ojulari, similar spot, tons of talent, young. Again, he's undersized, but he can be a situational pass rusher in a league that is always starving for pass rushers. Don't know why he hasn't found a home yet. Some of these things boggle the mind, right? I would have preferred him here. Like I said, John Kahn said that the team did show some interest. I don't think it was a ton of interest, but they did show minimal interest in him. But it never got to a point where they started talking numbers or anything of that sort. And obviously they went the Jacob Martin route. And so that's dead now. Don't see them signing 2 situational pass rushers. So there's that. Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Chauncey writes, my guy CD, triple OG writes, is this a make or break year for both Luke and Ben? No. Year 2 can't be a make or break year for a receiver. That's a rookie. I just don't think that. Year 3 can be, right? Because if I don't see anything from you by the 3rd year, then you're more likely than not probably not going to make the squad going into year 4. Being that they drafted Luke, he's going to get it. Like if a new group came in here and Luke had two years of nothing burgers, like Fedarian Mathis or like Emmanuel Forbes, yeah, this could be the danger zone for Luke. But they drafted Luke. They're not going to pull the plug on Luke. Ben, same thing. Now, these aren't make or break seasons for either one of those guys. They'd like to see a little bit more return on the investment on both of those guys in year 2, right? But even if those guys give you exactly what they gave you last year, the fans will turn on them, but the organization probably won't give up on them. But we expect both of them to have bigger roles and grow in the offensive scheme this year. So we'll see. I don't think it's a make or break, but you expect productivity and progression from both of those guys. I'll say that. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I hope all of you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I hope the weekend treats you well. We'll come back, reconvene unless something major happens tomorrow, which I doubt highly. We'll come back, reconvene on Monday, and we'll hit it again. We'll get after it, and we'll start probably turning our attention to the draft as we're now in that season, now that free agency, the first wave at least, has come and gone. The Commanders may dip their toe in the second wave of free agency here or there, but I think they've made most of the noise that they're going to make. I wouldn't be shocked if there's, and I told you this last video, that I wouldn't be shocked if there are another 2 or 3 signings. Well, they brought back Cleveland Farrell. They signed Nate Herbig. So that's another 2 signings right there. And I wouldn't be shocked if there were another 2 or 3 more signings, right? But again, low-level guys, you get 90 of these things, right? You get 90 that you can bring to camp. So they still got some space. I wouldn't be shocked if there were 2 or 3 more this week of signings. But again, low-level signings. I'll be shocked if it's like a Zadarius Smith or someone that gets you excited. It'll be another guy that, who the hell is this? You know, type of guy. Or, okay, cool, whatever. Not going to really move the needle type of guy. So anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys on the other side of it. Until then, you guys take care. God bless and good night.